Let's go! Today we're going to grade LSU during the first transfer portal window. At the end of the video, I'm going to give you one player that LSU has just offered that I am in love with at a very key position. But starting off here, we want to talk about what has left LSU. And when you actually look at the numbers, it is into the teens. But I could argue that LSU, out of any school in the SEC, has actually lost the least. And sometimes getting rid of players is actually a good thing because, well, they're dead weight. They're not really doing anything for you as a program. Now, I know that sounds harsh. College football is really hard. But let's start off here with the players that has actually left LSU, starting off with former top 100 linebacker Antoine Sampa, as you can see, he went to a school named Campbell. Now, right now, I'm looking at you. Tell me which state the Campbell Camels are located. And obviously you probably don't know that, and that lets you know that a lot of these players are transferring to non-Power 5 schools, and that pretty much tells you that they didn't turn out to be what we expected them to be. The same could be said about Philip Webb, who is now at Jackson State, a non-FBS school. Demarius McGee, I don't remember where he transferred, but he wasn't ever going to play. Jack Besh, obviously a very, very good player. He goes to TCU. I think he's going to be phenomenal there, but he was lower on the wide receiver depth chart. Ray Darius Jones, academically suspended. He goes to Mississippi State. Wasn't really playing. Desmond Little gets the former B.J. Ojulari single-digit number, but what's very interesting is there was wide open playing time at the jack linebacker position, and he still transferred. Cole Taylor was probably the fourth or fifth best tight end on the roster. Obviously, I wish Cole the best. The shoot throw, who will never forget that. I thought the Angel Reese play was very interesting. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Shout out to Angel Reese. She is awesome. But Cole Taylor was a very inconsistent tight end, especially as a blocker. Kobe Fields was a backup linebacker. This isn't even Kobe Fields. This is actually Sage Ryan. And that goes to show you how Kobe Fields' tenure at LSU went. And it's the same thing with Desmond Little. There is a lot of playing time up for grabs at linebacker, and he still transferred. Cam Wire started the season at right tackle, had a ton of starts on the offensive line at tackle. So he was a very solid, serviceable three-star recruit out of Gonzales. But when the other offensive tackles got hurt, or when there was a need for someone else to go in, they never actually went back to Cam Wire. So I'll let you know he sunk on the depth chart, and he went to Tulane. Once again, a non-Power 5 school. Derek Davis Jr. goes to Pittsburgh. We don't know if he's a running back or a safety. He decided to leave. Marcus Doomerville goes to Maryland. I think Doom could turn out to be a really solid player. They started using him as a blocking tight end towards the end of the year, but just by the brief practice clips that we saw, he got beat a lot. Xavier Hill, deep on the depth chart. Jaden Davis Robinson, I really wish he would have stayed. I do think he's actually going to be a really good Division I corner, but he decided to go to SMU. Jamario Tolan obviously was a big loss, and you could make the case that he is by far the biggest loss because he had a wide open path to start next year at linebacker. He decided to go to Auburn. He released a statement. Obviously, Walker Howard, the same here. He goes to Ole Miss. Anytime you lose an elite quarterback prospect, that always stings, but we know the direction LSU is going at that position. Xavier Carter, the same thing as Desmond Little. Wide open playing time at the jack. He still decides to transfer. And then, of course, Cardell Thomas, Mr. Pancake, wasn't ever really a serious player for LSU on the starting offensive line. Bam! I'm looking at you. Yes, you right now. So, don't forget, PowerHourLSU.com is where you can get your merch. Obviously, sometimes my videos do get demonetized. The donation goes a long way. And I feel like, because LSU is desperately needing a B.J. Ojulari replacement, next person that orders $60 worth of merch, I'm giving you this autographed Arden Key card. I wish Arden Key nothing but the best of luck this weekend in the NFL playoffs. Now, here is a photo of all of LSU's early enrollees. Now, before I continue, I know my evaluations of the players that just left was harsh, but that is how the staff has to evaluate certain positions, right? Guys that need to go elsewhere to open up room for guys that could come in to fill those needs. And the concerning thing was, like we just mentioned a minute ago, a lot of the guys that entered the portal at positions that had the wide open playing time. So you see a lot of defensive linemen and corners that we're going to get to here via the portal. Now, once again, this photo is featuring some high school players, but in the fall, there's going to be even more high school players like Lance Hurd and Caleb Jackson that will be enrolling. So really excited about that. So we'll go through the new names as quickly as we possibly can. Once again, these are just the portal guys. Aaron Anderson coming in, former 5-star receiver, top 40 guy in the 247 composite, year 2 guy coming over from Alabama. Obviously, you feature more of him as a returner year 1, but he could also potentially play some receiver. Health is going to be very important for him moving forward. Obviously, Braden Swinson. I think the biggest question mark is who is going to play the jack linebacker position. I think Swinson has a good chance to win that job. Paris Shand is who I believe that was in the top left corner. His tape looks really solid, right? He had a very impressive forced fumble versus San Diego State. So, yeah, not the only Pac-12 transfer. We'll get to another one in just a second. Jalen Lee, just like Major Burns, was initially allegedly, quote-unquote, processed as a high school recruit, which means he was committed to LSU as a high school recruit coming out, and they no longer wanted him to open up another slot in recruiting for somebody else. And just like Major Burns, no hard feelings towards LSU. He decided to come back home. Obviously a big-time, a big nose tackle who kind of fell out of the rotation at Florida. Hopefully this works out here at LSU. This was and probably still will be my highest rated portal guy coming in. I do think Denver Harris is a very solid player. I had a really good grade on him coming out of high school, and I'm very ecstatic that he actually is ending up coming back to LSU. We could talk about the off-the-field stuff some other time. We need playmakers, and he is one of those. And Jordan Jefferson is a playmaking defensive tackle at West Virginia. Scheme is going to change a little bit. If you want deeper breakdowns on the defensive line guys that are coming in, we've already done it. Good time to mention the patreon.com/LSU Football. If you sign up for Patreon, the first person to sign up for Patreon from this video, guess what? I'm hooking you up with a Joe Burrow card on me. We've already done a deep breakdown on Jordan Jefferson. Some technique things are probably going to have to change some. It is going to be a scheme shift from what they did at West Virginia, but the guy has some serious playmaking chops. We get to Zion Alexander. I know it's an FCS corner. I know we've had a few FCS corners transfer in over the past couple years with varying degrees of success, but this guy is a big-time athlete. He started getting some love from USC and some other schools, so this guy is a true playmaker. Shout out to my guy Blake, who used to play at Southeastern. He really does think he is going to be a really good player. Deuce Chestnut is the most experienced player potentially coming in out of the portal. Until another day, and we'll get to him in just a second. But Deuce Chestnut played a lot of off coverage, which is something LSU did a lot of last year. He could also press as well. And, he had some rough spots in the game versus Florida State that Syracuse played last year. But I know he's going to want revenge in game 1 of the season. And I think Deuce Chestnut and Denver Harris are likely going to be your starting traditional outside corners next year. Well, of course, Terrence Welsh is going to be in that mix as well, as will this young man, Jakai Johnson. I could see him playing the nickel in Matt House's system. He is the fastest corner coming in. Obviously, top-end speed, played at Ohio State. And I'll say this, when he transferred out, I read a few Ohio State blogs. They're missing him, right? They think he's really good, and why would he transfer over? Well, he played at DeSmet High School, where Robert Steeples also coached just a few years ago. And, of course, Steeples is currently the cornerbacks coach. And we get to Ovi Ogufo. Very experienced edge player. Shout out to John Silby Butler, PHL lifer, who is a professor at Texas. He's really high on him. And look, he is a very experienced guy. Started off his career at Notre Dame. He's a hustler, right? Most of his success came on coverage sacks, but he is very experienced, and that alone will be very good. Him and Braden Swinson both of them have a good shot to start at the jack outside linebacker position. And we're going to save the best for last, and he is the most recent transfer portal addition, Omar Speights. Look at the orange hair on Omar. I love it. All Pac-12 performer. He put up such great numbers at Oregon State. And I honestly think he would have been drafted probably probably like a late day 2, day 3 pick to let you know how talented that guy is. I mean, that tells you all you need to know, right? And especially considering off-ball linebackers aren't as high of a priority in the NFL draft anymore. It's pretty daggum good. Now, I actually watched quite a bit of Omar Speights' tape. The USC game was really good. There were some red flags mixed in there, but you play as many snaps as he does at linebacker, those are going to pop up, right? Obviously, the transition go from the Pac-12 to the SEC is going to be interesting, especially at a physically demanding position like linebacker. But this was by far the thinnest position on the team, off-ball traditional linebacker, and this will not force Harold Perkins to have to move to the inside and play more of a traditional linebacker role. So up to this point, Omar Speights, out of any of the transfers, is the one with the highest likelihood to not only play, but start and play a lot of snaps. Now, the only thing is, if Omar's watching this, we have got to see some purple hair this year. Let's freaking go! Boom! I'm looking at you. Yes, you, right now. So, it's time to give a grade. Don't forget, if you can, in the bottom right corner of your video, another way you can help PHL, hit that super thanks button. It goes a long way. And any donation obviously goes and helps the movement. Now, before I give you my grade, 247 Sports actually has LSU as one of the highest graded transfer portal dominators of this first cycle. But also a school like Florida State is there as well. So understand LSU is not the only school that is getting a bunch of needs filled via the portal. But the bottom line is LSU gets an A for me up to this point. They have answered corner. They have answered linebacker. And they're also going to answer another position of need. I'm going to give you that name to keep an eye out for in just a second. But, for me, here's a graphic from Michael Bratton. And as you'll see, LSU has only lost 13 portal players. Now, earlier you saw 17 players, but 4 of those guys weren't counted because they weren't really on the roster. So, really, nationally, you take a look at what The Athletic has reported, 12.5 players per team has entered the portal. 12.5, and LSU has lost 13. So, honestly, it seems like a lot, but it's not, especially considering the players that LSU has lost weren't proven. The only guy to have been proven to be a big-time playmaker was Jack Besh. That's it. And he had fallen on the depth chart. So, yes, Walker Howard can be elite. DeMario Tolan can be elite. But for the most part, most of those guys, they had their opportunities to turn out to be good players at LSU, and they just weren't here. Maybe at their next stop, but LSU just didn't really lose anything, and they've gained a lot. I think Denver Harris is going to be really good, Omar Speights, all the other guys that filled huge positions of need. But the biggest observation, and Skipper and many of you have pointed this out privately in our Discord, is LSU has only brought in really defensive guys, and that's where most of the help was needed because LSU did lose a lot on defense, which leads me to one big name to keep an eye out for, Jakai Clark. He is a starting center from Miami. Now, does LSU feel comfortable with Charles Turner being their center all throughout next year? They probably do. Charles Turner is a very solid player, but if you go watch our Purdue film study, there were a few snaps there that he did get bullied, and, he's not the lightest. I mean, he is a lighter center, so, he can get pushed back a few times here and there. So, Jakai Clark is a multiple-year starter, a former 3-star recruit, and let's be honest, most of LSU centers have been 3-star recruits, P.J. Lonergan, Lloyd Cushenberry, and so on. Really only Ethan Posick was like an elite recruit that was a center for LSU. So, Brett Helms is another name that comes to mind. So, most of LSU centers were 3 stars anyway, and Jakai Clark is one of those 3-star diamond in the roughs that have been one of the lone bright spots for Miami, and I think he could come in and start right away for LSU, and that would obviously fill another need because LSU would become deeper on the offensive line, and, they could move someone that they were going to try and force to play into center, maybe to a guard or maybe to the other side of the football. I love this if LSU is going to be able to close the door with an offensive weapon. So what's interesting is transfer portals now have windows. The first December window to January has just closed. The next one will open in May. But the best I understand, I believe it's May 1st or May 15th, will be the final transfer portal window for immediate eligibility next year. I think Jakai Clark can commit at any time, though, because he is, like Joe Burrow, a graduate transfer. So I am really excited about the potential of him coming in. So, as you can tell, this was a detailed breakdown, but as our patrons know, we go a little bit deeper. Patreon.com/LSU Football is where you can get more breakdowns there. So, obviously, down below, give me your grade for LSU's portal window. Once again, an independent arbiter like 247 Sports believes LSU has crushed it. So, let me know what you guys think. This was a lot of fun. I love doing these breakdowns. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! And I understand, like, it's the LSU channel, and you think that, I'm just pumping sunshine and rainbows. I'm not. Everything I felt was rather objective. Some of these guys that LSU has brought in from the portal, I think won't turn out to be anything, but it's worth a shot. So, very excited about this. And tonight, it's spaghetti night 2. Let's go!